Billionaire saw his maid's daughter sleeping on the street. What he did next no one expected. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In a sprawling mansion high on a hill overlooking the city, there lived a billionaire whose name was known across the world. He had everything money could buy, from the most luxurious cars to private jets, from grand palaces to rare art collections. Yet, there was something missing in his life. His wealth had isolated him, and the world seemed like a cold, distant place. But one fateful evening, everything was about to change. It all began when he decided to go for a walk, something he rarely did. As he strolled down the busy streets, the billionaire felt a sense of restlessness, as if his money and power couldn't fill the emptiness in his heart. His bodyguards were a few steps behind, and the city lights flickered like stars against the darkening sky. He wasn't expecting anything unusual, but what he saw would haunt him forever. Under the harsh streetlight, there, on the cold pavement, lay a young girl with a thin, worn-out blanket pulled tightly around her. She was curled up on the street, her face hidden, and the sound of distant traffic seemed to drown out the cries of her hunger. The billionaire's heart skipped a beat. He paused, his breath catching in his chest. It was the daughter of his maid, the little girl who had worked in his household for years. He had seen her many times, always cheerful and eager to help, yet he never paid much attention to her. She was just a child to him, a shadow in the grand halls of his mansion, someone whose life seemed insignificant compared to his own opulence. But now, seeing her lying there on the street, the reality of her situation hit him hard. She was no longer just a servant's daughter. She was a human being, a child, in need of help. The billionaire took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had the means to help, but he had always been so focused on his business, his wealth, that he never bothered to look beyond the surface. He had never asked about her life, her struggles, or what drove her to sleep on the cold, unforgiving streets of the city. As he stood there, contemplating what to do, a wave of guilt washed over him. How could he have been so blind? He had all the riches in the world, yet there she was, a child with nothing, lying in the dark. Without another thought, the billionaire stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He gently shook the little girl awake, and as she opened her eyes, confusion and fear were evident in her gaze. For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and the billionaire saw something in her that he had never seen before: strength, resilience, and an unspoken plea for help. He knew then that this moment would change everything. I hope you're ready for what's about to unfold. As the billionaire stood there, looking down at the girl, he felt a deep sense of shame, a feeling he had never truly experienced before. He had built his life on success, on conquering the world with his wealth, but standing here now, in the cold streetlight, he realized how little his fortune had prepared him for this moment. The little girl's tired eyes stared back at him, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. He knelt down, his knees creaking with the weight of his decision. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently, his voice softer than he intended. The girl blinked, her face confused and fearful. It was clear that she had not expected someone, especially someone of his stature, to stop and care. She quickly wiped away a tear, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm fine, sir. Please, just let me be." Her words cut through him like a knife, and in that instant, he realized that this wasn't just about her being hungry or cold. This was about a child who had learned to hide her pain and never ask for help, because no one had ever bothered to listen. "No, you're not fine," the billionaire replied, his voice firm but filled with compassion. He reached out a hand, offering her his jacket. "You shouldn't be out here like this. Come with me." The girl hesitated, looking at the hand he offered. It wasn't just any hand. It was the hand of the man who owned everything: the buildings, the cars, the land. She had never imagined that one day this hand would reach out to help her, but she couldn't accept it. Not because she didn't want to, but because she had learned too well that people like him didn't help people like her. She was just the maid's daughter, invisible in the grand scheme of things. But then, she looked into his eyes, and something shifted. For the first time, She saw sincerity, not pity, in his gaze. She had seen enough to know that there was more to him than just his wealth. Slowly, she reached out and accepted his hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. He smiled, helping her to her feet. "Come on, I'll take you somewhere warm. You shouldn't have to sleep out here, not tonight, not ever again." As they walked together, the billionaire couldn't help but think about how many times he had passed by people in need, people who were invisible to him. He had always been so consumed with his empire that he had failed to see the human side of life, the side that wasn't defined by wealth or status. Tonight, as he walked beside this young girl, he realized that there was something more important than his business. There was something more valuable than the money he had amassed: human connection. He knew this was only the beginning of a change, not just for the girl, but for himself as well. It was a shift in his perspective, one that would eventually redefine the way he looked at the world and the people in it. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. As they arrived at his luxurious mansion, the billionaire felt a weight lift from his chest. He led the girl inside, his heart heavy with guilt for not noticing her struggles sooner. The warmth of the grand foyer enveloped them, a stark contrast to the cold, unforgiving street where he had found her. She stood there, eyes wide, taking in the opulence around her. The towering chandeliers, the polished marble floors, and the grand staircase. It was all so different from the life she had known. She had spent years in his house, but always in the background, always invisible. To see the grandeur in person made her feel like she didn't belong. "I know this is overwhelming," he said, noticing her discomfort. "But I want you to feel at home here. You don't have to hide anymore." The girl didn't speak at first, still taking it all in. She had heard the whispers in the halls of the mansion, the hushed voices of the staff, when they spoke of the billionaire's power and influence. She had never imagined that she would be on the receiving end of his kindness. After a long silence, she finally looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. The billionaire paused, his eyes softening. "Because no one should have to feel invisible. Not you, not anyone." He led her to a cozy room, far from the formal spaces of the house. A small but comfortable bed, a desk, and a few bookshelves lined the walls. It wasn't a grand room, but it felt different from the one she had worked in. It felt safe. "This will be your space," he said. "You can keep it however you want." The girl didn't know what to say. For the first time, she was being treated like more than just a servant. She was being treated like a person, with dignity, with respect. She glanced up at him, her voice still unsure. "But, I don't understand. Why me?" The billionaire sat down beside her, his expression serious. "Because I've spent my life building empires, chasing wealth, but none of it means anything if we can't make the world better for others. You deserve better than the life you've had, and I want to help you find that." His words struck her like a thunderbolt. She had never imagined that someone so powerful, so distant, could care about her in this way. She had always seen him as a figure of untouchable wealth, a man who lived in a world completely different from hers. But now, she was starting to see that he was just as human as anyone else. He had flaws, just like her. He had regrets, just like her. And he had the power to change lives, starting with hers. She looked at him, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. The billionaire smiled, his heart warmed by the sincerity in her words. "You're welcome. And this is just the beginning. I promise you, things are going to change from here on out." For the first time, the girl allowed herself to hope. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who mattered, someone who had a future ahead of her. And for that, she would be forever grateful. I hope you are still with us, because the story is about to take a surprising turn. As the days passed, the little girl settled into her new life in the billionaire's mansion. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was now a member of the household, though it was a role she could hardly comprehend at first. The billionaire, whose name she had never even dared to ask, made sure she had everything she needed. A proper room, a private space where she could read, study, and dream. It wasn't just the material things that changed, though. The real transformation was in how she felt, seen, valued, and respected. The billionaire checked on her regularly, never treating her like a servant, but as an equal. He would ask about her day, how she was settling in, and even offer advice on things she was interested in. She found herself opening up to him in ways she never thought possible. One afternoon, he walked into the room where she was sitting, reading one of the books he had given her. She looked up and saw a look of genuine curiosity in his eyes. "How are you feeling here?" he asked gently. She paused, her fingers stilling on the page as she thought about it. "It's different," she said quietly, looking down at the book in her hands. "But it's also nice. I don't feel like I have to hide." The billionaire nodded, sitting down beside her. "You shouldn't have to hide. You deserve more than that." His words struck her deeply. She had never thought she deserved anything more than what she had been given. The hard work, the long hours, the endless sacrifices. But now, sitting here in the warmth of his home, she was beginning to wonder, could she have a different life? One where she was not defined by her circumstances or the expectations placed on her. A life where she had the power to choose her own path. The billionaire smiled at her. "You know, I've been thinking. You're smart, resourceful, and I believe you have a lot more potential than anyone has ever given you credit for. If you could do anything, what would it be?" She hesitated. The idea of having dreams, of choosing her own future, was new to her. She had always focused on surviving, on getting by, but now the idea of having a purpose, a real future, seemed possible. "I've always wanted to go to school," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't think it was ever going to happen." The billionaire's eyes softened, and he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Well, let's make it happen," he said with a smile. "I'll make sure you have the best education. You deserve the chance to pursue your dreams, whatever they may be." It was the first time she had felt truly hopeful for the future. She had always accepted that education was a privilege for the rich, for those who didn't have to worry about where their next meal was coming from. But now, it seemed that her dreams might be within reach. The billionaire's offer wasn't just about giving her money or material things. It was about giving her something much more valuable, the opportunity to create her own future, to have a voice, and to choose her own destiny. As the days went by, she began to study, to learn, to see the world in a new light. She wasn't just learning facts from books. She was learning that she had the power to shape her own story. And it was all thanks to one unexpected act of kindness from a man who had seen her not as a servant, but as a person worthy of a better life. I hope you're still following along, because the story is about to take another unexpected turn. As time went on, the little girl, now no longer a mere maid's daughter, found herself becoming more than just a student. She was transforming into a young woman with dreams, goals, and ambitions. Her life, which had once been filled with invisible labor and a quiet, unnoticed existence, was now bursting with possibilities. The billionaire kept his promise, making sure she had everything she needed for her studies. She had tutors, books, and all the resources that the best schools could offer. But more than that, he encouraged her to be bold, to ask questions, and to explore the world beyond the walls of his mansion. The young girl, who had once believed that her life was meant to be confined to the background, now felt a growing sense of confidence. One evening, as she sat at her desk studying for an important exam, the billionaire came by to check on her. He knocked gently on the door before stepping in. "How are you doing?" he asked with a warm smile. She looked up from her work, surprised to see him, but she quickly put the books aside and stood up. "I'm doing well," she said, her voice more confident than she had ever sounded before. "I'm almost ready for the exam tomorrow. Thank you for everything." He nodded, clearly proud of her progress. "You're doing more than well," he said, his voice full of admiration. "You're becoming someone who will make a difference in this world." His words struck her deeply. For the first time, she believed it. She wasn't just someone who had been given a chance. She was someone capable of taking that chance and making something of it. The next day, after the exam, the billionaire arranged for a private meeting with her to discuss her future. They sat together in his office, the room filled with bookshelves and papers, the walls adorned with awards and accomplishments. "I know you've been working hard," he said, leaning back in his chair. "And I want you to know that no matter what happens, you're not alone. You have the power to shape your own future." The young girl nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility she had never known before. "I won't let you down," she said softly. "I know you won't," he replied. "I can see the potential in you, and I want you to keep pushing forward. There's so much more out there for you to discover." It was in that moment that she realized just how much had changed in her life. From sleeping on the streets to sitting in the billionaire's office, she had gone from being invisible to someone who was seen, heard, and valued. But more than that, she had discovered a new sense of purpose, one that was hers to pursue, to shape, and to live. As she left the meeting, the weight of the world felt lighter. The future that once seemed so far out of reach was now within her grasp. And with the billionaire's guidance, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. I hope you're still with us as the story continues to unfold. Over the next few months, the young girl's life continued to change in ways she never thought possible. No longer was she the invisible child, working tirelessly in the shadows. She was becoming someone with a future that was bright and filled with opportunities. Her days were filled with school, study sessions, and countless hours of learning. But for the first time, she truly enjoyed it. The billionaire's encouragement and unwavering belief in her abilities gave her a sense of purpose. Every step she took, every exam she passed, felt like a step closer to a life she had only dreamed of. But just as things seemed to be going perfectly, a situation arose that would test everything she had learned. One evening, as she sat in the mansion's grand dining room, studying for an important test, she overheard a conversation between the billionaire and one of his trusted business associates. They were discussing a major project that had the potential to change the face of his empire. The project was huge, worth millions of dollars, and the billionaire had poured his heart and soul into it. But there was a problem, a legal issue that could cost him everything. As she listened, she realized that the future of the billionaire's business was hanging by a thread. The realization hit her like a wave. She had always known that the billionaire had a powerful empire, but she had never seen how fragile it could be. She felt a sudden rush of responsibility. This was the man who had given her a chance when no one else had. This was the man who had believed in her when she had nothing. And now, she had to do something. She couldn't just sit back and watch everything he had worked for fall apart. She made up her mind. The next day, she went to him, her heart pounding with a mix of nervousness and determination. "I heard about the project," she said, her voice steady but full of concern. The billionaire looked at her, surprised. "You've been listening?" he asked. She nodded, looking him in the eyes. "I know it's a big risk, but I think there's something you can do to fix it." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "There's a loophole in the contract that no one's considered," she said, her voice confident now. "I've been studying business law, and I think I can help." He looked at her for a long moment, his mind racing. For the first time in a long while, he saw the depth of her potential. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. "All right," he said finally, "let's hear what you've got." They spent the next few hours going over the details. The young girl, despite her lack of formal training, showed an understanding of business law that amazed him. She had a sharp mind, and her fresh perspective was exactly what the project needed. By the end of the meeting, they had a plan in place, one that would not only save the project but propel it to new heights. As the days passed, the young girl's solution proved to be the key to resolving the issue. The project was saved, and the billionaire's empire was secure once more. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had done it. She had saved him and his business. But more than that, she had proven to herself that she was capable of so much more than anyone had ever imagined. And as for the billionaire, he realized that the greatest gift he could give her was not just the wealth and resources at his disposal, but the belief in herself that she could accomplish anything. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was a brilliant young woman with a future of her own, and the billionaire had played a part in making that possible. I hope you're still with us as the story unfolds. The young girl, once the invisible maid's daughter, had now transformed into a key player in the billionaire's world. Her knowledge, her sharp mind, and her newfound confidence had earned her the respect of not just the billionaire, but of those around her. Yet as her life continued to shift dramatically, she found herself facing another challenge, one that would test not just her intellect, but her character. The billionaire, seeing her growth and the success she had brought to his business, made an offer she never expected. He wanted to send her abroad to one of the world's most prestigious universities to further her education. It was a dream come true, a chance to step into a world she had never even imagined. But as she stood there in the billionaire's office, listening to him speak, a feeling of unease began to grow within her. "You've proven yourself beyond what I ever expected," he said with a proud smile. I want you to go out there, learn, and come back with the knowledge to change the world. This is your future, and I want to see you soar." She nodded, grateful, but a sense of uncertainty lingered. "But what about everything here?" she asked hesitantly. "What about the people who have helped me get this far? What if I forget where I came from?" The billionaire's smile softened, and he leaned forward. "You will never forget where you came from," he said with conviction. "But you will also discover that you are capable of so much more. This is your chance to learn, to grow, and to become the person you were always meant to be. And when you come back, you'll have the tools to help others in ways you never thought possible." The young girl sat in silence, the weight of his words settling deep within her. She had always known that she wanted to make a difference in the world, but she had never imagined the impact she could have. She thought about all the others like her, the ones who were hidden in the background, working tirelessly with no recognition. Could she really change their lives too? As she prepared to leave, the billionaire made one final request. "When you're ready," he said, "I want you to return here, not just as my guest, but as someone who can take my place. You've proven that you have what it takes to lead, to think beyond the surface, and to make the right choices. I trust you." These words resonated deep within her. She had always dreamed of making a difference, but now she was being given the tools and the opportunity to do so. She was no longer just a bystander in her own life. She was becoming the architect of her future. After months of preparation, the day arrived for her to leave. The billionaire, standing by her side, gave her a parting gift, a simple journal. "This is for you," he said. "Write down your thoughts, your ideas, and your dreams. You'll need it as you move forward." As she boarded the plane, the young girl took a deep breath, knowing that the future was hers to shape. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who had the power to change the world. And when she returned, she would not just carry with her the knowledge of a prestigious education, but the wisdom of someone who had come from nothing and had everything to give. I hope you're still enjoying the journey. As the years passed, the young girl, now a young woman, found herself thriving at the prestigious university she had once only dreamed of attending. Her days were filled with rigorous coursework, stimulating discussions, and experiences that challenged her in ways she had never imagined. She had come a long way from the streets where she had once slept, hidden away in the shadows of a world she thought was out of reach. The education she received was world-class, but what truly transformed her was the realization of her own potential. She no longer doubted her ability to succeed. She had built a new life for herself, one where her worth wasn't determined by her background, but by her knowledge, determination, and vision. Despite all of the successes she had achieved, the young woman never forgot the billionaire who had believed in her when no one else had. He had given her the opportunity to see a different life, a life full of possibility. She thought of him often, especially as she worked late into the night on her projects, pushing herself to reach new heights. It was during one of these late nights that she received a call from him. She had grown used to his calls, checking in on her progress, offering advice when needed, but this time, there was something different in his voice. "I need you to come home," he said. "There's something important we need to discuss." The words were simple, but they carried weight. The young woman knew this was a turning point, a moment that would change everything. After finishing her final exams, she packed her bags and made her way back to the mansion that had once been her home. It felt surreal, like a dream she had woken up from. Yet the mansion was the same, grand, pristine, and full of memories of her journey. When she arrived, the billionaire was waiting for her. He looked older, his hair graying at the temples, but his sharp eyes still held the same intensity. "You've done well," he said, his voice warm with pride. "I knew you would." She smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You gave me the chance to believe in myself." He nodded, his gaze serious. "That's why I called you back. I have a proposal for you." The young woman felt a flicker of curiosity. "What is it?" she asked. The billionaire paused, taking a deep breath. "I've decided to step back from the business. It's time for a new generation to take the reins. I want you to lead it." The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. She stared at him, stunned. The opportunity was everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed of. But with it came responsibility, and the weight of that responsibility was immense. "I know it's a lot to ask," he continued, "but I believe you are the right person for the job. You've proven your intelligence, your integrity, and your ability to make the right decisions. Now, it's time to take everything you've learned and use it to shape the future." She stood there in silence, processing his words. It was overwhelming, but it was also the culmination of everything she had worked for. The young woman had come a long way from the streets, from being the maid's daughter with no future, to becoming someone with the power to shape an empire. She knew that this was her moment, and with a deep breath, she made her decision. "I will do it," she said, her voice steady and filled with determination. "I'll lead the company." The billionaire smiled, his eyes filled with admiration and pride. "I knew you would." With that, a new chapter began for both of them. The young woman, once invisible, was now at the helm of the empire, ready to lead with the wisdom, compassion, and vision she had cultivated over the years. The future was hers to shape, and she was ready to make a difference. I hope you've enjoyed the journey so far. As the young woman took her place at the helm of the billionaire's empire, the weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders. But it wasn't a burden, it was a challenge, one she was ready to face with determination and grace. She had spent so many years living in the shadows, but now she was the one casting the light. The company thrived under her leadership. She implemented changes that not only increased profits, but also improved the lives of those who worked there. She focused on creating a workplace that valued people, not just their output. She remembered the struggles she had faced, the loneliness, the sense of being invisible, and she was determined to make sure no one else would ever feel the same way. As she continued to lead, the world began to notice. Her vision was transforming the company into a beacon of hope, a place where talent and hard work were rewarded regardless of background. The once invisible maid's daughter had become one of the most powerful women in the business world. But despite her success, she never forgot where she came from. Every decision she made was grounded in the values she had learned during her humble beginnings. She regularly visited the staff, listening to their concerns and making sure that no one ever felt like they were invisible again. One day, as she walked through the halls of the company, a familiar face caught her eye. It was one of the employees who had been with the company since its early days. She had always admired him for his work ethic, but now, he looked different. He had a certain spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before. She stopped to talk to him, and they exchanged pleasantries. "You know," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of awe. "I remember when you first started here. You were just a little girl, always so quiet and focused. We never thought you'd make it this far. But now look at you. You've changed everything." Her eyes softened as she listened to him. "I haven't changed everything," she replied. "But I've tried to. Make sure that everyone here has the chance to change their own future. That's all I've ever wanted." The man smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Well, you've done it. You've made all the difference." She smiled back, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. It was moments like this that reminded her why she had worked so hard, why she had never given up. It wasn't just about the success or the wealth. It was about making a difference, about helping others see their own worth and potential. As she continued to lead, the company's success grew, but so did her personal growth. She wasn't just the billionaire's protege anymore. She was a leader in her own right. And in that role, she had become the person she had always hoped to be. Someone who inspired others, who helped them find their way, and who believed in the power of change. The young woman had come full circle. From the streets to the top of the corporate world, she had achieved the impossible. But what mattered most was that she had done it on her own terms, with kindness, integrity, and a belief in the worth of every person. And in the end, that was the greatest success of all.